By 1958, the economy was in poor shape. A major global downturn in international markets combined with several years of stagnation had left Australia in bad shape. In a normal election climate, this would spell doom for any government, but the late 50s was not a normal time period. A new party had emerged across the country, and it would make its mission to stop the Labor Party ever forming government. By 1958, Prime Minister Robert Menzies would pass a major milestone. At 10 years, he had overtaken Billy Hughes to become the longest-serving Prime Minister in Australian history. Throughout this time, Menzies had grown into an exceptional politician and began to look towards the international scene. In 1956, Melbourne, Australia would play host to the Olympic Games. This was the first time the Olympics were held outside of Europe and North America, and despite a few complications, the event would bring much prestige to the country. Despite engaging with nations in the local region, Menzies remained a strong supporter of Australia's traditional ties to the United Kingdom. Menzies was an adamant supporter of the British monarch, and he would attend the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, who has been the reigning monarch over 15, and counting, of our current 30 Prime Ministers. His support towards the UK would lead him to join forces with them and the French in challenging Egyptian President Gamal Nasser's nationalisation of the Suez Canal, in an event that would become to be known as the Suez Crisis. Despite presiding over a long period of political stability, Menzies was not presiding over a strong economy. In what came to be known as the Recession of 1958, or the Eisenhower Recession, named after the current US president, the global market experienced its biggest decline since World War II, and this caused a major decline in public support for the current Liberal coalition's government. However, despite how bad things were going for the coalition's government, things were much worse for the Labor Party. H.V. Evatt remained the leader of the Labor Party, but across the country the party was in crisis. After breaking away from the Victorian branch of the Labor Party, the anti-communist forces of B.A. Santa Maria began to gain supporters in other states, leading to the Queensland's branch of the Labor Party also splitting in 1957, when Premier Vince Gare was expelled after a long period of disputes with the executives of the Queensland Labor Party. Gare would take with him 25 other members of the state Labor government and would form the Queensland Labor Party, or QLP. The result of this split would be the downfall of the 25-year-old state Labor government, with Frank Nicolin of the Country Party winning the 1957 election, becoming Premier and ushering in 32 years of coalition rule for the state. Outside of Victoria and Queensland, the other states were faring better. The Archbishop of Sydney, Norman Gilroy, opposed the anti-communist movement's tactics and would ensure that the Catholic wing of the New South Wales government remained with the main party. In a similar manner, Tasmanian Labor Premier Robert Cosgrove was successful in preventing a split, only losing a few members who went on to become independents. Despite avoiding splits, the anti-communists began to set up party branches in these states and would run against the Labor Party in the upcoming federal elections. Out of all the states, Western and South Australia were the least impacted due to their low number of Catholic Labor members there. The anti-communist forces would rebrand themselves as the Democratic Labor Party, or DLP, and began to gain support with Labor's traditional Catholic voting base. Evatt knew that without the support from the Catholics, Labor was not going to win the 1958 election. In an act of desperation, Evatt offered to resign if the DLP would merge back with the main Labor Party. However, his offer was refused. Due to almost losing his seat of Barton in the previous election, Evatt would move to the safe Labor seat of Hunter to avoid being kicked out of Parliament. The 22nd of November would be the chosen date for this election, and it would be a major milestone in Australian elections, being the first to be televised. Menzies would appear in interviews, where his experience as a radio broadcaster would transfer over well, appearing very confident on the small screen. Meanwhile, Evatt and his colleague Arthur Calwell would take part in debate with coalition ministers William McMahon and the not yet drowned Harold Holt. Oh, whoops, spoiler warning. And the winner was Robert Menzies, with another gain of 2 seats, which brought the coalition up to 77 seats. This was the first time in Australian history that an incumbent party won seats twice in a row. This gain strangely came in the face of a swing against the coalition in the two-party preferred of 0.1%. Thanks to the work of the QLP and the DLP, Evatt had lost even more seats to now only hold a measly 45, a number smaller than what they had won back in their 1949 defeat. Both the DLP and QLP saw turnouts in the first preferences of 7.8 and 1.6% respectively. This was not enough to score either party a seat in the lower house. However, the DLP was successful in retaining its 2 senators, ensuring it to have some presence in government. Fun fact, being the first to be televised, this election also saw the first use of an expert panel. Led by ABC presenter Michael Charlton, this panel would include political experts as well as representatives from each major party in this election. This included former Lang Labor member Eddie Ward, representing Labor, William McMahon, representing the Coalition, and Jack Kane, standing in for the DLP. This panel would discuss the campaign as well as the result tally as it came through, and together they would identify what this election result meant for Australia. And today it has now become a staple of any election, be it state or federal. This election would also see former Prime Minister Arthur Fadden finally step down and leave Parliament after 17 years leading the Country Party. He would be succeeded by Victorian John McEwen, who, elected unopposed, would take the de facto position of Deputy Prime Minister under Menzies, only 17 years after originally running for the position back in 1941. Come back next time for the election of 1961.